My husband forgot our anniversary again but spent weeks planning his friend's party. When I told him I was hurt, he said I was overreacting and should be more supportive. I'm Sarah, a woman who's been married to my husband, James, for 5 years. On the surface, our relationship seems solid, but recently, things have felt off. James is a caring, hard-working man, but lately, I've been feeling like I'm not a priority in his life. He's often consumed by his work and his friendships, while I'm left wondering where I fit in. I've tried to be understanding, but with our anniversary passing by unnoticed for the 2nd year in a row, and him dedicating so much effort to his best friend's party, I can't help but question where I stand. I'm tired of being the one who always adjusts my expectations to make excuses for his behavior. This is more than just one missed occasion, it's about the growing distance between us. I woke up on the morning of our anniversary with a faint flicker of hope. Despite everything, part of me thought this year might be different. Maybe he'd planned something small but meaningful, a card, a cup of coffee brought to bed, or even a simple, happy anniversary. It didn't have to be grand, just something to show that he remembered. But as the hours ticked by, my hope dimmed. The morning passed without a word. Over lunch, he seemed preoccupied, scrolling through his phone and muttering something about work emails. By dinner, the silence around the date felt deafening. Still, I held out for a last-minute surprise, a thoughtful gesture to close the day. Nothing came. I tried to brush it off. Maybe he had a rough day at work. Maybe he had forgotten but planned to make it up later. I didn't want to overthink it. But as I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't shake the sinking feeling in my chest. It wasn't just about this one day. It was about the growing pattern of being overlooked, of feeling like I wasn't a priority in his life anymore. Last year, he'd forgotten too. Back then, I chalked it up to an innocent mistake. He'd been busy with a big project, and I didn't want to add stress by making a fuss. When I brought it up casually a few days later, he apologized with a sheepish smile and promised to make it up to me. I let it slide, convincing myself it wasn't worth dwelling on. But the make-up dinner never happened, and as the months passed, the memory of that promise faded. This year, though, there was no excuse. He wasn't drowning in work or dealing with anything particularly stressful. In fact, he'd been brimming with energy lately, but it wasn't for me. It was for his best friend's birthday party. For weeks, he'd been planning the event with meticulous care. He spent hours researching themes, debating menus, and ordering custom decorations. Every evening, he'd excitedly update me on his progress. "Look at these invitations," he'd say, shoving his phone in my face. "Aren't they perfect?" I nodded along, feigning enthusiasm. I wanted to be supportive, but it was hard not to compare the effort he was putting into someone else's celebration to the complete absence of effort for ours. He even took a day off work to help his friend with party setup. I couldn't remember the last time he'd taken a day off for us. By the time the party rolled around, our anniversary had already passed, unacknowledged. That night, as I watched him laugh and mingle at the party, my feelings boiled over. I wanted to tell him how much it hurt to see him pour so much into someone else while treating our marriage like an afterthought. But I didn't want to ruin the night for him or his friend. Instead, I bottled it up, plastering on a smile as I stood in the corner. I was the supportive wife, just as I'd always been. But inside, I felt invisible. It wasn't just about the party or the forgotten anniversary. It was about what these moments represented. Our marriage was supposed to be a partnership, but lately, it felt one-sided. I couldn't help but wonder if he even noticed, or cared, how much his actions were affecting me. The next day, I decided to bring it up. I rehearsed what I wanted to say, trying to strike a balance between expressing my feelings and avoiding an argument. "Hey," I started cautiously as we sat down for breakfast, "I wanted to talk about something that's been bothering me." He looked up from his plate, eyebrows raised. "What's up?" I took a deep breath. "It's about our anniversary. You forgot again this year, and it hurt. I know it's not a big deal to you, but it's important to me. It makes me feel like I'm not a priority in your life." For a moment, he didn't say anything. Then he sighed, putting down his fork. "Come on, really? It's just a date. You're making this into something it's not. I blinked, taken aback. It's not just about the date. It's about feeling like our relationship doesn't matter to you as much as. Stop, he interrupted, shaking his head. You're overthinking this. I do plenty for us. Just because I didn't make a big deal out of one day doesn't mean I don't care. But you went all out for your friend's party, I pointed out, my voice trembling. Why does that get so much attention, but our anniversary doesn't? His expression hardened. Because that was a one-time thing. I can't spend my energy celebrating every little milestone, especially when we've been married this long. You need to grow up and focus on what really matters. His words hit me like a slap. I stared at him, unable to respond. Did he really think our anniversary, a day meant to celebrate our commitment to each other, was just another little milestone? I felt a lump rise in my throat, but I swallowed it down. There was no point in arguing if he couldn't even acknowledge how I felt. Instead, I nodded stiffly and left the table, retreating to the bedroom. As I sat on the edge of the bed, tears streaming down my face, I realized this wasn't just about him forgetting. It was about how little effort he was willing to put into us, and how easily he dismissed my feelings. The pattern was clear, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. I wasn't sure what the solution was, but one thing was certain, something had to change. I had been trying to be patient, trying to convince myself that maybe I was overreacting. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I wasn't. This wasn't just about one forgotten anniversary, it was a pattern. James was always quick to give his time and energy to his friends, his work, and his hobbies. But when it came to our relationship, I was left with whatever was left over. The week leading up to his best friend's birthday party, I watched as he meticulously planned every detail. He'd call me into the living room, excitedly showing me the party favors, the themed decorations, and even the personalized cake he'd ordered. He was so invested, so eager to make the day special for someone else. But when I thought about our anniversary, I realized I hadn't even been on his radar. There had been no mention of it, no acknowledgement, and definitely no effort. It wasn't just the party, it was everything. The countless nights he spent out with friends, the weekends away with them while I stayed home. Every time I'd ask for some time together, he'd promise to make it up to me, but nothing ever came of it. He'd get so caught up in whatever else was happening in his life that I'd be left waiting, wondering if I was even a priority. I had been letting it slide for so long, but now, it was too much. I couldn't pretend it didn't hurt anymore. I wasn't just upset that he'd forgotten our anniversary, I was hurt that it seemed like he couldn't be bothered to put in any effort for us, yet he could do so much for others. That night, after a long day of him stressing over the party details, I decided I couldn't stay silent any longer. James, we need to talk, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I didn't want to come across as too emotional, but I knew I had to speak up. He didn't look up from his phone. Can it wait? I'm trying to finalize everything for the party tomorrow. No, it can't, I said, my frustration building. I need to tell you how I'm feeling. He put his phone down and gave me a tired look. What's going on? I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. It's about the anniversary. You forgot again this year, and it really hurts. But it's not just that. It's the fact that you've been so focused on making someone else's day perfect while ignoring ours. It's like I don't even matter. James frowned, clearly taken aback. It's just one day, Sarah. You're making this into something bigger than it is. I've been busy, I've been working on other things. It's not a big deal. I could feel my anger rising. It's not just about the day, James. It's about the fact that this has happened more than once. You always make excuses, but when it comes to your friends or work, you always find time. Why is it that I'm always the one who gets the leftovers? He looked away, his expression hardening. You're overreacting. You know how I am. I can't always be thinking about anniversaries and special dates. I've got other things to deal with. Other things? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. What's more important than our relationship? I don't need grand gestures, but I do need to feel like I'm a priority. I can't keep pretending it's okay when you never put any effort into us. James' face tightened, and I could see the defensiveness creeping in. I'm doing the best I can, Sarah. I'm not perfect, but I care about you. You're making this a bigger issue than it needs to be. The words stung more than I wanted to admit. I don't need perfection, James. I just need to feel like I matter. Right now, it feels like you care more about your friends' birthdays than you do about our marriage. His expression shifted slightly, but he still didn't fully grasp what I was saying. That's not true. I'm just trying to make sure everyone's happy. I stood up, my frustration bubbling over. But I'm not happy, James. I've been trying to make excuses for you for so long, but I can't do it anymore. I'm tired of being the one who always adjusts my expectations to make you feel better. I need more than this. I could feel the tears starting to form, but I refused to let them fall. I wasn't going to cry over this anymore. It wasn't just about the anniversary or the party, it was about the years of feeling ignored, of being pushed aside in favor of everything else in his life. I didn't know if it was too late to change things, but I couldn't keep pretending that this wasn't breaking me. James didn't say anything at first, and I wondered if he even understood what I was trying to say. But then, in a quiet voice, he muttered, "I don't know what you want from me." That was it. That was the moment I realized just how far apart we had grown. He didn't even know what I wanted. How could we fix something when we couldn't even understand each other's needs? I didn't respond. Instead, I walked away, leaving him in the living room, still preoccupied with the party he was about to host. As I retreated to the bedroom, I couldn't help but wonder how long I could keep living in a relationship where I was always second to everything else. The party, the friends, the work, none of it mattered if I wasn't part of the equation. The days that followed our argument were tense and heavy. James tried to act as though everything was fine, going about his daily routine like nothing had changed. But for me, nothing felt the same. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had reached a breaking point, and no matter how much I tried to convince myself otherwise, I couldn't ignore the truth. I had been settling for too long. I spent the next few days reflecting on everything. The years of putting my own needs aside, the constant reassurances that things would get better, the little moments where I convinced myself that maybe he just didn't understand what I needed. But it was becoming clearer now, he didn't understand because he wasn't willing to. And maybe, deep down, I had been allowing it to continue because I didn't want to face the reality of what that meant for our future. I wasn't asking for perfection, but I needed more than just the occasional apology. I needed a partner who cared enough to show up, not just when it was convenient, but all the time. And in that moment, I realized that I had been trying to make a life with someone who was too focused on everything else to make me feel seen. The next evening, I finally spoke to him again, this time with a sense of clarity. "James, I've been thinking a lot about everything we talked about," I began. "And I've come to a decision. I can't keep living like this. I can't keep waiting for things to change when they never do." He looked at me, his expression unreadable. "What do you mean?" "I mean," I said, my voice firm but not unkind, "that I need more than this. I need to feel like I matter. If that's not something you're willing to give me, then I don't know where we go from here." He didn't respond right away. For a long moment, the silence hung between us. I could see the wheels turning in his mind, but I also knew deep down that I couldn't wait for him to figure it out. I had to make the choice for myself. And as I stood there, I realized that no matter what happened next, I couldn't keep sacrificing my happiness for a relationship that wasn't fulfilling me anymore. The silence between us was unbearable. James stood there, processing my words, while I waited, heart racing. I had never imagined that it would come to this, that I'd have to confront the reality that our relationship might not survive if things didn't change. But in that moment, I knew I couldn't keep waiting for him to change on his own. I had already spent too many years justifying his actions, excusing his neglect. Now, I was at the point where I had to choose myself. "I can't keep pretending like everything's fine when it's not," I said, my voice steady but tinged with emotion. "I've tried to talk to you about how I feel, but it always feels like it doesn't matter. I can't keep living in this uncertainty. James didn't immediately respond. I could see the shock in his eyes, and for a moment, I almost felt guilty. But I quickly reminded myself that I had done everything I could to make him see my needs. I had communicated, I had been patient, but now I needed to stop settling for the bare minimum. Finally, James spoke. Are you saying you want to end things? The question hung in the air, and I felt my heart tighten. I didn't want to give up on us, I didn't want to walk away from the life we had built together. But the truth was, I didn't know if we could fix what had been broken. I don't know, I replied, my voice quiet. I just know that I can't keep going like this. I need more, and I'm not sure you're willing to give it. The words stung, but they were the truth. The truth I had been avoiding for so long. I needed a partner who saw me, who valued me enough to make an effort, not just when it was convenient, but every day.